Hello, Culés. Welcome to Barca Talk. I'm your host, Gabriel Quiroga, in the Spanish capital. In today's show, Ben Hayward joins me as we review yesterday's Clásico, where Barca lost their fourth straight Clásico, third under Koeman. And after another, as newspaper Sport put it, impotent performance, Barca lost 2-1. Before we get into the breakdown, just really quickly, I just want to talk about the fitness of this team. As I'm recording, the news just came out that Pedri is going to get an MRI, and it looks like he's going to be injured or out longer than we thought. And Frankie de Jong is going to be missing this week in action as well. And again, watching the match yesterday, one of the things that I think Barca is lacking is pace of play and fitness. And we're seeing with these mounting injuries and longer rehab stints that there's something as an issue with this fitness team. Again, I was watching the Liverpool-Manchester United game, and I know it's hard to compare Liverpool because they are one of the top teams right now in Europe. But one thing I can always count on is Jurgen Klopp has his teams always fit and ready to run. And I think Barca is lacking that. We saw at the beginning of the first half that they were able to press for quite a while, 15, 20 minutes or so, and also in the beginning of the second half. But I think we are lacking this team mentality of pressing even further and having more speed as a whole. Now, I know the team isn't the fastest on paper, but I feel that if you can maintain a higher intensity for longer, it will press the team that you're playing against to make more errors. And this team of Barca needs to find any advantage they can to create more opportunities. As we saw in yesterday's match, our attack was pretty, as Sports said it, impotent with the amount of shots, especially with Dest missing that open one. And in these big matches against these big teams, we have to be more solid and we have to use our talented players to their advantage, and that is to get them more fit. Now, some quick Barca Talk announcements. Like I said in the last show, we updated our website, so check that out at barcatalk.net. There you can give a review of the show. You can sign up for our Patreon. You can sign up for our newsletter. You can also leave a voicemail, which I hope to play in the future for episodes. So if you have a question or comment, it's really easy. Check it out and leave a voicemail. The other thing, really quick, if you want to get more content from us, join our Patreon. It's only $5 a month. During yesterday's match, it was really awesome because Mariana was sharing photos and videos of her point of view in the press box at the Camp Nou, which was awesome. And also just the banter we had during the match. You know, it's one of those things, like I always say, if you want to talk Barca, there's always someone on the other end to respond to that. The link is in the show notes. Now, after the break, Ben Hayward joins me as we dissect this impotent performance by Barca. So first, I want to talk, I saw on your social media that you attended an NFL game in London recently. How was that?
I did. First American football game I've watched live. And yeah, I enjoyed the experience. Obviously, it was at Tottenham as well. And the reason I went was I met with some friends in London and they were going to the game. I wasn't intending to go, but I had the chance to go because one of my friends couldn't make it in the end. And I enjoyed the experience. I didn't understand everything that was going on. And, I also thought it's a lot of stoppages. It's not what I'm used to watching regular football and what we call football and other sports. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the experience, definitely.
Yeah, before the pandemic, I was able to go, and it was the first NFL game in Tottenham, the new stadium, and it was the Bears game, and I went, and it was an awesome experience. But like you said, ever since I've moved here, the stoppage of play is really difficult to watch with American football. Yeah, it's just a long game, but it was an awesome experience. It was one of the best experiences I've ever had attending a match because there were so many people from all over Europe, essentially, Americans, expats, that were coming together to watch the game. So that was a lot of fun.
Stadium is incredible, isn't it?
It is. It was super comfortable. And also, I remember I went with a friend of mine, and he was able to order beers with the app that they had there, and he just kept coming. And it was just like, it was incredible. So, but one of the things with American football that we usually talk about in American football is the difference between average and good and excellent. And that becomes with situational coaching, these micro minutes or micro situations that happen in American football, especially when there's stoppage of play. You can think about these ideas. But in football, it's a lot more difficult because there is no timeouts. There is no stoppage. But I want to kind of dissect a little bit about the counterattacking defense of Barca, because when I've been watching football, especially this season, I don't know if Barca has one of the worst counterattacking defenses in Europe, because I feel that every time they play any team, the other team looks as they're going to score. And if we saw yesterday, Alaba scores that goal. Is it something that do you think Barca just really needs to specifically work on, or is it just the teams that they're playing and the high press is going to lead to these type of counterattacks all the time?
It's an interesting question, Gabriel, and it's something that I've thought about recently, but also over the years. And if you look back, the way that Barcelona play football, they're always going to be vulnerable to this kind of quick counter-attacking style. And that's why I guess that's what makes the Clásicos so fascinating as well, because we have this clash of styles, which has changed a little bit over the years, but it essentially remains similar to this day. You know, we saw it even in the game yesterday, Barcelona with slightly more of the possession, although not so much as perhaps they would have had, you know, years ago. And Real Madrid, you're doing damage on the counter-attack. And this is what Barca struggle with. You know, they play with that high line. Obviously, Piqué and Garcia, in this case, also Longley, they're not the quickest. They're not quick central defenders, so they're going to be vulnerable to pace and to quick attacks. And Busquets as well, you put him in that situation, it's not his ideal game, so they're always going to be vulnerable, I think. Are they worse now than they were before? I think the whole team has gone back, has regressed, and then so you notice it more maybe than you would have done, because perhaps in years gone by they would have won this game 4-2 or whatever. They definitely dominated over a long period in Clásico clashes. But this is something we've seen in Europe. You know, the struggles against Liverpool, against Paris Saint-Germain, and the big clubs in Europe. They've been hit essentially on the counter-attack, and it remains a problem. And it doesn't look like it's one that Koeman can solve. And his record in the big games probably highlights that as well.
Yeah, it's one of those things, especially too on the replay, watching how the players react. I just feel like they don't know what they're doing. They're just running back just to run back. And to me, that kind of shows the lack of discipline of how to defend the counter. And I know it's difficult, you know, especially when you are giving up 40 yards on a high line, right? And especially if Vinicius Jr. is running down that line, especially someone that's faster than you. But again, I thought, you know, looking at the lineup, I thought Mingueza was going to have a better performance because I thought he was a better defender than Sergio Roberto, for example. But time and time, he got caught out on long balls, which to me is unacceptable, because if I'm, you know, looking at Barca and trying to scout Madrid, I'm saying the first priority we have to do is stop the counter with Vinicius Jr., right? And I just felt they never closed down on him, and also just being caught over the top. What do you think about Mingueza's performance? Obviously, he got subbed out at halftime, but did you think there was this kind of rookie mistakes, or was it just more of just like his positioning? Because as you said, Barca plays such a high line.
I think it's a bit of both. I think he got torn apart, didn't he, at times by Vinicius? And obviously, Vinicius is very talented. He's very difficult to play against, and Piqué and others have struggled as well because he's so unpredictable. He runs at you, great dribbler, and he makes things happen. And I think, to be honest, any of the players you could have picked in that position probably would have struggled. If you put Dest as a right back as opposed to further forward, I think he would have had difficulties as well. Sergio Roberto also. So it was Mingueza, and he's I guess also less experienced, and it didn't work out well. I mean, Barca had big problems down that side, and they had Mingueza and Dest. I think Koeman did that deliberately. He doubled up because he knew that Vinicius would be a threat, and yet even with two fullbacks down that side, they had no answer to Vinicius and to Real Madrid's attacks on the down the left hand side. Barca's right, so it was a big problem, wasn't it? It was, I guess, no surprise that Alaba's goal came down that flank.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where, as a defender, and I don't care in whatever sport you play, when someone is faster than you always want to tend up to give up space so that you can anticipate and so forth. But I just feel that our defense continually gives up too much space to players, and they can't close fast enough, especially on that almost penalty call that Vinicius had. I mean, Vinicius was a monster in the first half. I mean, as much as I haven't been a Vinicius believer last 2 seasons, essentially. He's definitely come into his own, and he's become a better player this season. I want to talk about the Alaba goal because I think that's a microcosm of this defense. Memphis gets the ball, he loses at the top of the box, and Alaba takes it, right, and goes coast to coast, essentially. There's no foul given. The lines ran by Barca were just out of chaos, essentially. And also the way Memphis did not pass Alaba off, like he just kind of gave up on the run. I think this is a microcosm, but also that take by Alaba, I didn't know he had that in him to have that shot.
Yeah, no, the incredible finish. And it was a quick counter-attacking move. And as you say, a microcosm of perhaps Barcelona's problems in that area. And maybe similar to goals Madrid have been scoring against Barcelona kind of over the last decade. Just with winning the ball back, on the edge of the area, quick break. Barca players can't get back in time, and boom, it's a goal. I mean, it's very difficult to defend against, particularly the way, if you play the way that Barca play. And Memphis losing the ball, and then it happens so quickly. But Alaba, that was some finish, as you say, and obviously he's replaced Ramos. And I think that showed that, of the two key absences in this Clásico, it was before the game we were talking about, it's the first Clásico without Messi for 15 or more years, and the first one without Sergio Ramos. Alaba comes in and does that, and defends pretty well also. And Barcelona without Messi, it's just a lack of ideas, isn't it? So a great goal. And in the end, it was a game that was defined by moments, wasn't it? Because Serginho Dest had that wonderful chance to open the scoring, and if that goes in, it's a different match. 1-0 Barca, and he really should have buried it.
Oh my God, I was screaming at the TV on that because, to me, that's just an easy left foot poke, because of the way his body position was that. And like you said,
sure,
it's about these moments, right? And, before the match, I was talking with friends, and I've also said this in a previous podcast, obviously in these big matches, it's about chances and conversions, right? And like you said, Des had this opportunity. Ansu had 2 chances, and I know they weren't the best chances, but also Memphis had another chance, and they were unable to convert, whereas Madrid had, on that one counter, Alaba was able to score. My contention is with Memphis's play of late. I feel that he broke out at the beginning of the season. We talked earlier in the season about his early performance and having those early goals. But I think he's kind of come into a little bit of a lull where he's becoming more of a ball hog and not knowing when to release the ball, and more importantly, losing the ball too often. What have you seen from Memphis's latest performances compared to what it was in the beginning when he was scoring those goals?
Yeah, I would agree with your assessment, Gabriel. I think he had a great start, and the goals obviously help to boost confidence. And it's just it's difficult to judge, perhaps, with Barcelona at times. They can still turn it on against even quality teams. Like, remember the opening game of the season against Real Sociedad, a quality rival, and they put on a great performance. But he definitely has struggled in recent weeks. He's lost a little bit of his groove, for sure. As you say, he's hanging onto the ball for too long, making mistakes. Obviously, he loses the ball for the opening goal. Something interesting I saw watching the highlights back just now. You see, so many things when you're watching the game,
sure,
especially in a sort of bar situation. Obviously, I wasn't drinking yesterday, but still, you're surrounded by people, you're distracted a little bit. One of the things I noticed watching back was that just before Madrid's second goal, the ball comes to Memphis in the left-hand side of the Madrid area, and he has a wonderful chance to hit a shot first time. And he just holds it back and then plays the ball across to the middle, and Coutinho fluffs it, and then Madrid break and they score. You'd think a striker with confidence, a forward with confidence, would have hit that first time, and he should have. So that was another mistake, and ultimately costly as well, because Madrid went up at the other end and scored the goal. So yeah, things not quite happening for Memphis at the moment, and but it's sort of synonymous with the whole team. I mean, even even Ansu Fati, I mean, so much expected of him since he's come back, and came back really well from injury, and yesterday not much really. But also I feel that Barca didn't really create enough spaces or generate enough situations for him to cause danger and problems for Madrid's defense. I mean, Madrid had Lucas Vazquez at right back. They were possibly there for the taking as well. And I think with a better coach would have seen that, and because the lineups come out an hour before the game, and there's time still to plan. You can't imagine a Thomas Tuchel or a Guardiola or a Klopp not exploiting that situation. Ansu against Lucas Vazquez, but I think Barca only managed to get Ansu up against Lucas Vazquez once in the entire 90 minutes. So I think it also comes down to coaching as well, and players can look better if the team plays better, and it's also a midfield issue.
Yeah, you brought out an excellent point, because that's what I was going to go next, was the Lucas Vazquez situation. Now, in the lineup before the match, he put Memphis on the left, Ansu up the middle. This was going to be kind of my next thing about this, is that I feel that they didn't exploit that situation enough. And like you said, as a striker with Memphis's speed and so forth, I feel like he's not taking enough shots or taking enough opportunities on those counters, trying to wait for the brigade to come back, and to pass it around. I think that's one of the issues that's going on with this attack, especially against Lucas Vazquez. How many times did he become vulnerable? I don't really think it was a situation, because Barca were walking that corner, moving it around a little bit, but they never put direct pressure on Lucas Vazquez. Do you think, I mean, this is another issue that I have with this team too, is that if you compare the David Alaba shot where he was on the edge of the box, and Barca just still continue never to take these type of shots on the edge of the box, which still a good shot, to lead to this toothless attack that's happening, right? Because Barca always want to continue to have the most pretty goal, but also just like, as we talk about Memphis a little bit more, compared to the beginning of the season, where he was taking those shots from those angles and beating goalkeepers with power and angles, and he's just not doing that lately. Is that something that maybe Memphis just needs to shoot more and just get that out of the system?
Yeah, I think so, Gabriel. And that's one of the things I liked about Dest, actually. Obviously, he missed that wonderful chance that we talked about, but he does shoot. And he had that effort later on in the game from just outside the box or right on the edge of the box, where he hit it, a shot which fizzed just over the bar. A really good effort. And yeah, I feel like Barcelona need to do more of that. And Busquets, after the game, said about Alaba's goal, it was a shot, it wasn't a move. And that, for me, is it's sort of a strange thing to say. Yeah. As if, I mean, I understand, Barcelona have been playing a certain way for a long time, and that's the idea, the ideal sort of philosophy for them. But at the same time, you need to mix it up, and they all count in the same way. So if you can have long shots and have success that way, then do it, because it's something that perhaps Barca haven't done well enough in recent years, and certainly not in the Clásico. So players like Memphis that you mentioned have that in their locker, then try it a bit more. And it's difficult, obviously, to beat Madrid's defense, to beat Courtois from distance. But I think you need to mix it up, especially in a Clásico. So that's not the kind of thing I think Barcelona fans would want to hear from Busquets after the game.
Yeah, that's the other. I mean, especially with having Vazquez, who's not a defender. I mean, I was telling my friend watching the match, I was like, that is where Barca need to exploit. That is the key to this match, of where they're going to be able to get some attacking and so forth. I guess especially this season, especially without Messi and relying on Messi's goal scoring, we have tried, Barca has tried to do the possession game as they've done before to try to get these beautiful goals. And it's just not working. Their goals are down compared to last season, obviously with the Messi factor. But I just want them to, whenever they have a counter, just go, right? I feel like a lot of times they just continue to wait. And as we talk about with Memphis not having the shot, and I think that would have led to a little bit more opportunities, especially on the left side, where they could have exploited Vazquez's lack of ability on defending. And like you said, like a Tuchel or Pep would have looked at that and would have been salivating at that opportunity to exploit that. And I just feel like Koeman, again, is underwhelming with his tactics. And I hate to pile on this, but it's just like in these matches, it's a clear matchup problem for Madrid, and they were able to hide it and just get the points. And like you said, a goal is a goal. It doesn't matter how pretty it is or how powerful it is. It's still worth the same.
That's right. Yeah, and I think Lucas Vazquez at right back is something that could have been exploited and wasn't. And Koeman, ultimately, if you look at his record in the big games, he hasn't won a Clásico yet. I think Barca have won. Madrid have won the last 2 at Camp Nou, the last 4 in a row now.
But he said after the game they're coming close, so he's happy with that.
I mean, listen, if you look at the actual chances, yes, Barca did have chances, and on a different day, maybe they go in, and maybe the result is different. But I think also you have to focus on how the team is actually playing and the performance, and we need to look at that. And ultimately, it wasn't good enough. Madrid looked comfortable pretty much throughout the 90 minutes, especially after they went ahead. Barca had a lot of the ball, but they didn't really do anything with it. And then Madrid had more possession, and it's getting towards the end of the game. You think, well, maybe Barca will get an equalizer, but it's more likely that Madrid will score a second. That's what happened. And then obviously the consolation later on, but it's too late. It's not good enough from Koeman. It's reactive, and ultimately the team is not moving the ball. You talked about fitness, and that is, I would say, an issue, but also circulating the ball faster. Obviously, the players missing. Pedri was out. Dembélé would have been useful. Agüero would have maybe not fit enough to play the 90 minutes. But still with those players on the pitch, you move the ball around faster, give Madrid more to think about, and like you say, go on the attack, just go shoot early, surprise your opponents. And Barcelona weren't doing that. So I do think coaching is an issue, and I've always thought that with Koeman ever since he took over. And he's really, if you look at his record as Barcelona coach, they've beaten the teams they would be expected to beat anyway as Barcelona, and lost to all the big teams, including in the Clásicos. So you can say, we're getting closer, but Barca were at home, and this also was the first Clásico in some time in which a full crowd was allowed. Yeah. So with 80,000+ fans supporting you at home, you should be taking the initiative and performing a lot better against Real Madrid. And ultimately, they didn't do that. So excuses really.
Yeah, last thing on this attack, Barca's attack, do you think it's better to have Memphis up the middle as the number 9 as opposed on the left side? Because I've heard some, especially with Ansu coming back healthy, that we could see Ansu going up the middle. I mean, what do you think? Do you think Memphis being up the middle is a better fit for him, or do you see him on the left and Ansu up the middle? What do you think?
I'd like to see Ansu given a run actually up the middle. I think that could be interesting. And we saw the value of a real number 9 when Agüero came on. And obviously the goal was good, and good play by Dest as well. But I think try Ansu as a number 9. Because Agüero, I think, is probably going to be an impact player, not first choice. And with Depay, it's a difficult one. I mean, performances obviously have dipped, but I think ultimately he's probably better on the wing. Try those two together. I don't know. I think it also comes down to midfield play, chance creation, and without Messi, everybody looks poorer in that team ultimately. De Jong wasn't properly fit, we know that, and Ansu finished with some kind of knee issues at the end. We hope that that's nothing serious after his long layoff. But I think if you play better in midfield, and this is where you come back to positional play and passing, slick passing movement, if you do all of that better, you're going to create more spaces. And then you're going to see a better Memphis. You're going to see a better Ansu, and everybody improves. So it's all related to that. And I thought actually Coutinho, a much maligned figure, actually improved Barcelona when he came on quite a lot. So maybe with Messi now gone, maybe Coutinho has a role to play at Barcelona as well.
Like you said before, I want to see a little bit more street attacking football sometimes. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
you just got to go back to when you were a kid and just kind of make a move and hit a shot and go from there. And I think that's some of the things that's lacking with Barca's attack. That's interesting. I would like to see Ansu. I mean, what do you have to lose, right? Playing him up the middle and just seeing what you have, especially Memphis on the left, to maybe use that angle. Now, I'm usually not a hot take person, but really quick, actually, this news just came by that Pedri is going to be out longer. He's going to have an MRI, so that's really bad news for Barca. It seems that his quadriceps injury is a lot more serious, so that's really unfortunate because he's obviously one of the bright spots for Barca's midfield, as you just talked about. But really quick, I'm not a hot take guy. Frankie Young has played a significant number of games for Barca now. It's not his first season. I know he's still a young player, but are we just going to get these type of performance of De Jong? And what we saw in Ajax was just a glimpse of possibility in that moment, because I'm starting to wonder now if Frankie De Jong's midfield play is just going to top out of what we're seeing week in and week out. What do you think?
I don't know. Obviously, when De Jong signed for Barca, he was kind of billed as the most exciting midfielder in Europe after that great season at Ajax when they went to the Champions League semi-finals, and he was outstanding. But that was also playing a specific role in a very exciting young team. My hope, I guess, when Koeman came in, one of the positives in theory about Koeman was that he knew De Jong, and he knew, from the Dutch national team, and he knew how to get the best out of De Jong. It hasn't quite happened. Obviously, yesterday he's carrying an injury, and that's restrictive. It's obviously perhaps part of the reason why he didn't perform as well as he can. But it hasn't quite happened. I agree. Still young, still time. I guess. I suppose one of the other questions with De Jong is that should he be? Is he better playing as a pivot? Is it because he should be in Busquets' position? Obviously, Busquets remains important to Barcelona, and you wouldn't drop him. I'm not suggesting that, but if you take a player out of their best position, then maybe that's part of the reason. I know he didn't play quite that role at Ajax, slightly different. So it probably comes down to coaching, but I think he'll come good. It's just it's been a while though, hasn't it? It's been a while. I
mean, it's 74 matches now for Barca in total. So I mean, we're talking now, quite a sample of games. And the other thing too is I can only remember maybe a run of maybe 3 or 4 matches, maybe not last year, but maybe at the end of Setien's year, where he was coming good, where you're like, okay, there he is.
Yeah.
But again, I just think he's a better kind of, like you said, natural for Busquets' position. And unfortunately, it's kind of the same thing. I know he had an injury yesterday. He came out of the game with a hamstring injury. Again, another thing with the fitness of this team with injuries and rehab. And also, before I want to get to the last part of our conversation for that. But yeah, I'm worried because I was super excited. I've been a huge fan of his, especially I'm always trying to analyze of like, what are we missing here? Because he was so brilliant in that Champions League run for Ajax. And is it really just because he was in the system and just had less responsibility of just going forward? Is it really just that simple? And like, why can't Koeman or other coaches just put him in that kind of same surroundings to get the most out of him? Because like you said, better midfield performance gives more opportunities up front, hence more goals. Hopefully you get more wins.
That's right. The one thing maybe you would say is that if you look back at that Ajax midfield, it was a team of workers, and and playing next to Busquets, for all his qualities, he's never going to be the player who covers the most ground. Physically, he's not the best. So perhaps it's more difficult given the way Barcelona play. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, I would love, especially watching the Liverpool-Man U game, I would love Barca to go after Van de Beek because he's just rotting away there. I think that's could be a good partnership again with De Jong and de Beek. Last thing I want to talk about, because I know how much you love fitness, is Barca's fitness below par. For example, like, again, I keep going back to this, watching the Liverpool matches, seeing the night and day of just the intensity. Like you said, Coutinho comes into the second half. There is an intensity that comes. The play was brought up and all of a sudden, but it lasted for 10 minutes, 8 minutes or so. And then all of a sudden it really dropped off. I know, obviously playing and just sports and different things, it's really difficult to keep that intensity. You're asking someone to, full court sprint and stuff. But at the same time, if, you're only as good as the team is, right? Pressing and moving together. And I just feel there's an absence of that of fitness. I know that Barca was never the fastest team, even in the glory years, they were never the fastest, but it was all 10 of them moving together that felt like they were faster than the one person. Do you think there's something lacking with Barca's fitness leading to this, especially with the injuries we're seeing? Is there something that needs to be looked at with this team? Because Pedri's injured. Now we see De Jong injured. The rehab that's taking even longer. And, we think that Barca has all this innovation and so forth, but I just feel like they're still missing the mark on how to train players and, more importantly, rehab them correctly. Because now, especially with Dembele and all these players, what is your opinion on this?
I think you're right, Gabriel. You talk about Pedri, and the thing with Pedri getting injured is that you look back now, just the sheer quantity of games that he played over the last year, and you think that's too much, isn't it? That's far too much. And now he's out injured and probably for a while. And it's probably a consequence of that, isn't it? Let's be honest. In terms of fitness, I think you're right. One of the things that always occurs to me when I watch the Clásico is that Madrid just seem a bit fitter and a bit stronger, and they're able to bully Barca in duels, in challenges, and there's an aerial advantage as well, but that's not something that Barca have ever been particularly strong at. But they bully them, and that's what happens to Barca in Europe. You look at the games against Bayern, against PSG, Liverpool. It's a recurring theme, and I think Barca could be a bit fitter, they could be a bit stronger, and that would definitely help in games like this. So I do think it's an issue, definitely.
Yeah, it's a good point. Because the thing is, it's almost kind of like, when you're looking at your team, it's always about guerrilla warfare. What are we good at? What can we exploit? And I just feel like you said, Madrid, for the most part, are usually bigger, stronger, that type. But I feel that Barca could work on the fitness to be intense for longer than 10 minutes, because we saw at the beginning of the game when Barca was high pressing, Madrid was surprised. But then all of a sudden, you just knew naturally it was going to come off, and we never were able to replicate that. And again, I just think that has something to do with the fitness, just the overall fitness of the team, because I feel like we never have the ability lately to go forward. And this goes back to Memphis attacking, the counterattack, and so forth. It's all included in the performance of the Clásico. I mean, that's really what it is.
Of course. Yeah.
There's a couple minor moments. You have to make the most of those minor moments. And if you don't, you lose the 3 points. And like you said, this is the 4th straight Clásico that Barca's lost, and that's incredible, especially after all the work of trying to catch up to Madrid for wins and losses now in the Clásicos. Yeah. And now it just seems like lately, we just don't have the answer. And more importantly, it's unfortunately not fun to watch as a Barca fan. I mean, it's really difficult to watch. I mean, I'm trying to be positive and support the team and so forth. I really am happy about the youngsters getting time. But man, aesthetically, I could not change the game fast enough to watch the Liverpool match in Man U, which was, a barn burner. That's the way football should be played, in my opinion, now.
Yeah, this is it. Even when Barca had the ball yesterday, and they had quite long spells of possession, but they didn't seem to get anywhere with it. And going back to the topic of fitness, I think it's interesting if you look back to Guardiola's Barcelona, which is the pinnacle of this sort of this great era, last sort of 15 years or so. And that team was incredibly fit. All right, a lot of the players were younger, and it featured a young Messi and a much younger Piqué and others. Busquets, again. But that team was relentless. I mean, obviously they had the ball, and they had the ball for 70% of games. But that in itself requires incredible fitness, just to be able to keep the ball for such long periods. And if you remember, when they lost the ball, their pressing was insane. They would win it back. The aim was to win it back within say 5 seconds, and so often they would do that. They would lose the ball, and then you would see they would all 2-3 players would surround the opponent, and they'd win it back just quickly. And that's definitely something which has disappeared from Barca's game.
I mean, that's
and
a perfect point.
Enormously, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a perfect point, because when I think of Pep's teams, I never think that they're not fit, right? Like you look at Man City, it's like, maybe the tactics here or there are off a little bit, maybe for big games, but I never say to myself, look, they're going to be outrun. Like, no, like never. Like he does such a phenomenal job of running. And that's what I think is lacking, especially now, like you said, with Busquets and PK that are older now. How can we maximize them? I don't know, man, it's such a quandary, because there's all these little, puzzle pieces that end up to the, major performance of all this stuff. Yeah, I don't know if you have any last thoughts about the Clásico before we go.
No, really. I don't think it was a high quality Clásico by any means. And ultimately, either side could have won. Madrid, I just think are a little bit closer to where they want to be at the moment than Barcelona. And that would be sort of my overall thoughts. I just think Barca aren't really progressing under Koeman, whereas I think Madrid, even though they've had some sketchy results of late, they're probably closer to where they want to be, and still a long way to go. But over the course of a season, I think there's probably more chance of them being successful than Barcelona. We'll see.
I mean, this is the thing, is that Madrid just know how to scrap and get points. And I just feel that carries over from the Zidane era to this era now with Ancelotti Part 2. Again, like you said, they didn't play the best match. They've been struggling up and down for the couple matches. 4 straight Clásicos. I mean, you can't argue with that. So,
yeah, that's something that's always been said, isn't it? That Madrid can win leagues and can win trophies just because they're Madrid, because they know how to see it through and to get the results. Whereas Barca, to win the big prizes, they need to play well. And that's been a feature throughout Barcelona's history. Luis Enrique changed it a little bit. Valverde changed it a little bit, but with a high quality team as well. But certainly at the moment, it's not quite happening. And with the position they had yesterday, they should have done more. For me, I mean, the game was there to be won for either team, really, and Madrid just did enough.
Well, Ben, thanks for joining me, and as always, we'll talk soon.
My pleasure, Gabriel. Take care.